Metal Jesus here, and I'm back again with part 2 of my hidden gems for the mighty Xbox 360. I love this console. I've got a bunch of great games for it, and this is going to be another video showing you some games that not a lot of gamers either bought or know about, and if you're into collecting for the 360, this is going to be the perfect video for you. Keep in mind, like I mentioned before, these are not necessarily exclusive to this console. This is just simply for people who like to collect for it and play games on it. So just keep that in mind, but this is going to be a really cool video. Let's take a look. I want to start off with a game that frankly really surprised me. I actually like this game way more than I thought I would, and that is Syndicate by Starbreeze Studios. Now, if the name Syndicate sounds vaguely familiar, well, it's because it's a reboot of an old 90s Syndicate game that was a tactical game that came out on DOS years and years ago, but it's been rebuilt as a first-person shooter. Now, at first glance, admittedly, this game looks pretty generic. It takes place in the future, it's got a lot of gunplay, and yeah, it looks decent. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but again, it looks like so many other games. Now, the big selling point to this game, aside from the really solid shooting mechanics, I mean, guns just feel awesome in this game, but it has this hacking mechanic that goes on. On the fly, you can hack the environment, or you can hack your enemies. And it's really fun because you can take them over and have them turn against one another. You can put them into suicide mode and have them blow their brains out, or all sorts of other stuff. It never gets old. It's actually a really cool part of this game. However, I'm convinced that the reason why this game is even good at all is simply because Starbreeze Studios is known for making some really high quality games, especially first-person shooters. They created the original Darkness, and they created the original Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay game, which was way better than it should have been. Binary Domain is a Japanese-developed third-person action shooter that is very, very polished. It actually surprised me quite a bit. This is another game that, you know, when you look at the cover and you first look at the gameplay, you're not too impressed. There's a lot of games that look kind of like this, where it's sort of robots versus the humans in a futuristic setting, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we get that all the time, but this game it was a nice surprise. For one, the combat in this game at times really reminds me of Mass Effect, and Mass Effect's combat engine, especially in Mass Effect 2 and 3, is one of my all-time favorites. Also, there's some light RPG elements that allow you to upgrade your weapons at vending machines, as well as buy ammo. You can get health packs and other items to increase your stats.
Why? Why, you son of a bitch!
And you may have noticed that there is a lot of blood. This game is out of control. It feels so satisfying. God, I sound like a psychopath, but you know what? Just blowing stuff away is awesome in this game. Also, it has a really great sense of humor. It doesn't seem like it would, but it does. And to round it out, this game has really fun boss battles. It just has it all.
Do we got anything at all that'll damage this thing? First things first, take cover!
Condemned to Bloodshot by Monolith. These are the guys who made the classic shooter Blood, and more recently, Fear. These guys know how to make a scary game. So right off the bat, this game is a hella scary first-person survival horror game. It mixes up bare hand-to-hand combat, but you also fight with melee weapons like I guess pipes, hammers, 2x4s, and then you can pick up guns and start blowing away dudes. And like any good survival horror game, you can't really rely just on your weapons. In this game, your weapons break after only a few uses, and weapons are limited to the bullets that you have in your current clip. As a matter of fact, you can't even carry ammo, so it makes you think very careful about each and every shot. As a matter of fact, playing this game has been one of the most genuinely creepy and unpleasant games I've played in a long time. And I was really, really paranoid just going around every single corner because I just never knew if I was just gonna walk into a trap or get my ass kicked. Now, thankfully for my sanity, the game breaks up the combat by adding adventure game elements that place you in a crime scene with a detective kit at your disposal. You use that kit to analyze the evidence at the crime scene to make an official statement of how you think it was committed. Spec Ops The Line is a game that a lot of people have said is a total hidden gem, and I'm glad that I finally added it to my collection because it's really impressive. However, this game doesn't have the best first impression, and that's because it starts off as a fairly standard military shooter, but it quickly turns dark and sinister and even more than a little weird. Now, without giving out any spoilers, let me just say that this game is very psychological. As a matter of fact, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie Apocalypse Now, mixed in with maybe a little bit of Fight Club. Now, for those of you that have played this game, you know exactly what I'm referring to. I would go so far to say is that yes, while the game is fun and it plays very well, but the story is definitely the highlight here. But that's not to say that the action and shooting isn't handled well. It is, actually. This is a really well-made third-person shooter. You know, it can be a bit generic at times, but then some big moment will happen and then you'll just be drawn right back in. Also, the graphics are beautiful, especially the lighting. The lighting in some of these levels is just absolutely stunning. Also, it has really interesting set pieces for the shootouts. It's a really interesting level design, and also sand plays a big part of this game. I've actually never played a game where sand is so important to the plot and also the level design. This is a game that is atmospheric as well as cinematic, and yet it still makes you think. Highly recommended. Mini Ninjas is an action platforming game by IO Interactive. Now that may sound kind of familiar, and that's because this developer also made Freedom Fighters and the Hitman series. In the game, you play as one of the last ninjas in his village sworn to protect the country that is overran from evildoers. Yeah, it's pretty generic, but these samurai keep capturing animals and changing them into warriors, and it's your job to figure out why that's happening and to stop them. Now, along the way, your mini ninja has the ability to swap between forms of your friends for different skill sets. For instance, one dude is kind of a big old tank with this huge hammer that just knocks people back. Another one has a little bit more agility and is a little bit more stealthy, etc. You also have the ability to do magic as well as melee attacks, and you move between those with ease, and it's very satisfying actually. The combat in this game is pretty cool, although the camera can be a bit annoying. There's also a lot of platforming and exploration in this game. As a matter of fact, you spend a lot of time gathering different plants for potions and spells, and a lot of collectibles. There seems to be something hidden in almost every little nook and cranny. This game looks and plays great. I was actually really surprised by it, like a lot of these games on this list. And while it may look like a kid's game, man, it's surprisingly fun. It should not be missed. Dead to Rights Retribution is the third game in this series and feels very similar to the Max Payne games. Starring one man and his badass dog cleaning up the gritty, corrupted city. Did I mention that you get to play a badass dog that not only can grab ammo, but tear out a man's throat? The game mixes shooting and brawling, and frankly, the shooting's pretty satisfying. I actually never got tired of it. Now, the hand-to-hand combat, I didn't enjoy it quite as much. It's probably not my thing, but it does give you a bit of variety. For instance, you can attack high, middle, and low punches, as well as do combos. You can do disarms. There's also a bunch of finishing moves, so there's something there if you are really into hand-to-hand, but it's just not my thing. Also, this game is really not the most attractive game that is on the 360. And it's probably not the most interesting in level design, but honestly, that's not the point. This game it's kind of mindless, and sometimes that can be a good thing. Alice Madness Returns is the sequel to a popular 2005 title, which actually comes as a free download with this game. Yes, you get 2 games for the price of 1. Probably one of the big standout features of this game is Wonderland itself. It's just stunning and beautiful, and it's just so fascinating to look at and also explore. I mean, these levels are really inventive and completely whimsical. You just never know what you're gonna find around the next corner. Also, I appreciated the long draw distances that revealed just kind of these amazing vistas and far off places that you just hope to one day reach. And often in this game, you did. You'd see something way off in the distance and you'd get to go explore that. It was really cool. Now, since this is a 3D platforming game, of course you spend a lot of time climbing and jumping around levels to reach your goals, as well as fighting with enemies, both with hand-to-hand combat and with weapons. Now, I'll be honest with you, by the end of this game, it does start to feel a bit tedious. This game definitely kind of overstays its welcome a little bit. It's just a little too long, but if you can look past this is a really fun ride. Wet is a game that you play as a badass female bounty hunter named Ruby Malone. Think The Bride in Kill Bill, and you kind of get the gist of what this whole thing is about. This is a story that's all about blood rage and revenge. One of the main reasons why I was first drawn to this game is because I read that Eliza Dushku voices the main heroine in the game. You may remember her as Faith from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is one of my favorite characters. She's such a badass. You may notice that this game has a really gritty kind of grindhouse movie vibe to it. It's almost as if Robert Rodriguez and maybe Quentin Tarantino made a game with just over-the-top action sequences. This is what you'd get. This game is all about killing in style. You're gonna be like running on walls, jumping in the air, you're gonna be sliding really low on the ground, all in slow motion, taking on tons of dudes. It's just completely over the top. And to finish it off, you might just slash him with a sword. And as if that wasn't enough, occasionally Ruby will go into kind of this berserk mode where the sort of veil of blood will cover her face and eyes, and then she just goes completely nuts. The game gets really stylized. It's all bright red and black and white, and she just slaughters everything in her path. Now, is this game amazing? No, not really. I mean, I paid $8 for it, and I got about 10 hours of gameplay out of that, which, frankly, that's a good deal for me. And also, too, this game is pretty challenging. If you are a gamer that's looking for something that's gonna kick your ass, Wet is definitely that game. It's, you know, for what it is, kind of a budget title, I thought it was pretty cool. All right, well, there's a bunch more hidden gems for you 360 collectors out there. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I got a question for you guys, and that's about the build quality of the original Xbox 360. Specifically what I'm talking about, did you guys have one that failed? Now, me personally, yes, I did. I got one. I didn't get it at launch, but I got it, I think, maybe 6 months or maybe a year after they launched. And I had 3 of them fail. It actually really sucked. But Microsoft surprisingly was pretty awesome about how they handled that. I mean, they basically allowed me to ship it back to them for free. I got another one a week later, and eventually I ended up with this one that has been chugging along just fine. Now, it's loud as hell. It's the reason why I actually recently upgraded to the more current model of them, just because this thing sounds like a jet taking off, but at least it works. And so I'm kind of curious. I mean, did you guys run into the same issue? I know they had problems with millions of these things. And what do you guys think about that? I mean, me personally, it was definitely annoying, but again, I like how Microsoft handled it. It didn't cost me anything. It was simply just an inconvenience. I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys thought about that whole thing when these things first came out. As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel, and thank you for subscribing. Take care.